Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, the Switch is the new Wii, and Animal Crossing is the new Super Mario Brothers. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, and I am joined, as I am always joined, by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. We've got a good show for you today. We're going to be talking about the news from the week, including a Batman collection coming to the Switch and Nintendo's third quarter financial results. And then on Thursday, we are determining the single best NPC in The Legend of Zelda: The Skyward Sword. But Mark, in the meantime, how you doing?
I'm doing really well. Patrick, big news in my household. We got new hand soap in the bathroom.
That's exciting.
This was part of I also got a new soap dispenser. And while I was shopping for it on Amazon, I went crazy. And I was like, do you know what? I'm going to buy this soap that everybody's recommending. Unbeknownst to me.
Why is this crazy? Why is that crazy to buy the soap that everyone's recommending? That sounds like a sane course of action.
I bought a lot of it.
Oh, okay.
I bought
all right.
a lot of
That's
this
where
soap
the crazy comes in.
without having used it before.
Mm-hmm.
So we're committed to this hand soap. And so far, so good. I know everybody was really worried.
So far, soap good.
But it has no scent.
Oh,
which feels I can see how that would be a positive, and I'm learning to enjoy it.
Right, but you want that olfactory cue that you're getting clean.
That is exactly. It felt unnatural to have it be scentless.
Which, the unnatural part is that it would be scented, right?
100, yeah.
Because
orange creamsicle is not naturally.
No,
occurring.
that's not real. Just like how toothpaste shouldn't have to taste like spearminty. That doesn't actually make your mouth cleaner, right? That's not doing anything.
Right.
Mark, I have news for you. Well, wait. First, I want to know if you are ultimately happy with your purchase.
Do you know what? I think I would make a good prisoner of war because I get used to anything. And so I'm getting used to it.
Okay. All right. That's not a yes. Mark, I have news for you. I have started the third Star Wars High Republic adult grown-up novel. And I am maybe 30 pages into it. I'm very early days right now, High Republic Fallen Star. And it features, Mark, one of our favorite characters from earlier in the series.
Does it begin with a Y and end with a Yaddle?
No, it is not Yaddle, but it is Geode, the seemingly inanimate rock obelisk.
That makes me very happy.
Who is also the navigator of a starship. It made me squeal with joy when I saw him.
That's awesome. That makes me look forward to reading it.
Yeah, you got catch up. I want to talk about these books. But what are we doing? A Sonic Forces borrowing program. We're recording a show about Nintendo. Would you like to borrow my copy of Sonic Forces for the Nintendo Switch? You can. All you got to do is email us at nintendocartridgesociety@gmail.com and give us a mailing address, a physical address where we can send you my copy of this game for the Nintendo Switch, and you can play it for as long as you want. Or not play it for as long as you want and send it back and pay for postage. Both ways. There may be a copy of Untitled Goose Game in there. There's no avoiding that. It's just something that happens. You can't always get Sonic Forces. Sometimes you got to get Untitled Goose Game.
Another thing you can do is you can leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. If you give us a review on the U.S. Apple Podcast Store, we'll give you a shout out on the show. If you leave us a review anywhere else, we would love to hear about it. We would love to give you a shout out. The U.S. Apple Podcast Store is the only place that we actively check, but we appreciate everybody who leaves us a review. And again, if you do so somewhere, let us know. We would love to thank you on the show.
We would love that very much. Thank you to everyone who has already done it. And thank you in advance for what you are. It's such a passive-aggressive thing to say. Thank you in advance. I apologize for that. March is Kirby month. We're coming up on it fast.
Yeah.
It's only a couple weeks away. We are going to be devoting an entire month of programming to Kirby video games, and that means we need your input. Tell us what games you want us to talk about. Tell us your Kirby memories. Any Kirby stuff you have to share would help us. Email us, Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com, or get us on Twitter or wherever, because I want your memories. I like our memories, and they'll be pretty good for this show, but I would also love to steal some other people's memories and present them here as our own content. That makes it sound bad. Mark, we've got a couple emails that I would like to address. First, we got an email from Anthony titled Thoughts on Analog Pocket. I just came across this and thought it'd be an interesting thing to bring up / talk about on the show. The Analog Pocket. It's unavailable until 2023 at the earliest, but I love the idea of a handheld system that plays actual Game Boy cartridges on modern hardware. It looks like you can dock it and use a Bluetooth controller to play on the TV as well. I prefer this concept instead of emulating games in a pseudo legal, possibly illegal way. Would love to hear your thoughts on this. Keep up the good work, Anthony.
Now, Patrick, you own an analog product. You own the analog is it NT? Is that right?
Yeah, the analog NT, which is the Super Nintendo / Super Famicom. And I do like it. It is how I play Super NES game, like how I play Super NES game cartridges, because that is a cartridge library that I've carried with me forever, and will probably never get rid of. And the various Super Nintendos that I've had throughout the course of my life have, like, I had one that died, and then I had another one that was getting, like, the switches were getting, like, kind of loose on it. It is currently in my brother's possession. But this one is it's great and has the HDMI hookup, which makes it so I can actually play those games on modern TV.
Yeah, I love the idea of being able to, like, dock this analog pocket and
huge.
be able to play it on the TV. I feel like for me, the only downside to these is I don't have a collection of, like, Game Boy cartridges,
which is a huge downside. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the games I'm sure are not that expensive and are fairly available, but it's having to, like, acquire them and collect it and hold on to it.
But a lot of them are expensive though. Like, a lot of the like Game Boy Advance sort of like classic games that you would want to play on a Super NT or Analog Pocket are, like, do go for like $70-$80 at this point.
Yeah, I mean, so I think it's a great idea. I know that new orders aren't available until 2023, but they did ship some initially, right?
Yeah.
To people who did the original
They are
pre-orders.
in hands. Like, people do own them at present. But yeah, if you they're doing sort of like the staggered launch of, like, depending on when you pre-ordered, what wave you got it in, is when you can start to expect it. But yeah, the fact that 2023 at the earliest, that's a long ways away. Not as far away as the next Switch, of course, which is not going to be until 2025. But yeah, it is a long time to wait. And I think I have a Game Boy Advance, but I also have a, the Super NT that we were talking about before, and a Super Game Boy. So if I want to play Game Boy or Game Boy Color games, I can do that on the Super Game Boy into the Super NT and put them up on my TV.
Oh man, I hadn't thought about that. That's awesome.
Yeah, that rules, right? And then if I want to play Game Boy Advance games, that sort of is why I built up the GBA library on my Wii U, which is also nice because, like, I never had an expansive cartridge library for that, and just having the convenience of buying those things digitally is great.
But yeah, Anthony, I do think that as far as I can tell, all of the analog products are really cool.
Yeah, they all seem like they do what they're supposed to do. All right, then thank you, Anthony, for writing in. Xander wrote in with a question about Bowser's Fury, or related to Bowser's Fury. He recently, I'll just read the email. I got the 50 cat shines needed to defeat Bowser in Bowser's Fury, and the ending was so satisfying and exciting, and I'm sad because I just want a Giga Cat Plessy amiibo. Towards the end of the game, Plessy, like, turns into the cat version of, like, giant cat version of Plessy.
That's amazing.
And he says, that leads me to my question. What amiibo would you want to be made, and would you buy them? So it's a like, fantasy amiibo. Like, what obscure sort of, like, one-off character or, like, thing like that, what amiibo would you want? Does anything come to mind immediately for you, Mark?
Ooh. This, I'm gonna have to. This one I would have to think about because I own a couple of amiibo that you gifted me, but generally I didn't
that's right.
collect amiibo, so it would have to be.
It had to be very special for you to want it.
Yeah, exactly.
What about come on, a Professor Egad amiibo? You don't want
Okay,
that?
yeah, actually, I guess it's not that
Like
hard.
Professor Egad
I'm
and
incredibly easy to
Polterpup?
please. Yeah, those would be great. I would 100% want those.
There was a long time where, for me, man, it'd be so cool if they made amiibos were the champions from Breath of the Wild, and then they did it. So like, I don't know that I have one. Look, would I love a Rusty from Rusty's Real Deal Baseball or the Arcade Bunny from Nintendo Badge Arcade amiibo? Of course.
Oh yeah, well, we might as well just tick off our favorites.
Yep.
Give me a Mike Jones amiibo, Nintendo.
Yep. Hey, Nintendo, give me a Stanley the Bugman. Everyone wants more Donkey Kong 3 in their lives. In whatever form that is. Also Greenhouse. All right, Mark, let's get into what we've been playing this week. I am chipping away at Pokemon Legends Arceus. Oh no. I went on the Video Games, a Comedy Show podcast to talk about my experience with Pokemon Legends Arceus. It's a fun episode. It is out now, so you can go and check it out there. Little bit of a warning, we don't get to talking about Pokemon until like an hour and a half into the show. But it is a good goofy time nonetheless. Mark, I'm really liking this game. I want you to play it so we can talk about it like together and have trade our experiences in the Hisuian region.
Yeah, it's so, I don't know, kind of like weird to be living in a world where this new Pokemon game came out and generally everybody seems to be enjoying it and saying positive things about it and really having a good time.
Yeah, I mean, there is also like the negative corner of it that's all like the graphical presentation, but like no, that's all true, and like, yeah, it'd be nice if the game looked better. I have had the amazing experience of there being like some sort of bird Pokemon out in the distance, and it's far enough away that they drop the frame rate on it to like 2 per second, so it's like wings open, wings closed, wings open, wings closed, but it's so far away, and if I weren't playing it on the TV I wouldn't even see it, and like it doesn't matter anyway. I'm still excited to catch that bird.
What are you like enjoying about it? Is it like a really satisfying gameplay loop?
Yeah, so catching the Pokemon themselves, which is, you know, obviously like the heart of the game, feels like the heart of the game in a way that I haven't experienced in other Pokemon games.
I hate catching Pokemon in other Pokemon games.
I usually do too, because like I hate battling them down to a sliver of their health, and then, you know, throwing a bunch of balls at them while my Pokemon, you know, fall to their attacks or whatever. And the fact that you can do so much of it and are encouraged to do so much of it from outside the battle system, where you are sneaking around, where you are luring them out with berries or whatever. You're throwing rocks at them. You're throwing down little smoke bombs so you can sneak up on them. You're masking the... I forget exactly what the item is, but it's like a spray that makes it so your feet don't make sounds as you approach. And just like observing them for a while, so you can tell like when they're going to go back and like try to hang out with the other Pokemon or like go back into the water or whatever. It's just great to like have that be part of the catching experience instead of just battling.
That does sound that does sound way better. I mean, what about is there a lot of story? Does the story get in the way, or is it kind of just
the story absolutely? I mean, the story gets in the way in as much as all Pokemon stories get in the way, right? Like that, like, or maybe even more so. Every time I get into a story sequence, I'm like, yeah. I just want to get back out there and catch some more Pokemon.
Can you skip the cutscenes?
I don't think so, because they're not really cutscenes. They're all like dialogue.
Oh, just people talking to you.
Yeah. And a lot of it I do kind of just like jam through, because, you know, it's so much like, oh, this Pokemon's like looking at you like you must be worthy of, you know, whatever, and you're like, this doesn't mean anything, you know. So I'm ignoring a lot of the story, but, you know, being sent on the various missions that it does send you on, and that's all like fun enough motivation to be pointed into like specific directions on the map, but if it was just like truly open, I think I would be having more fun.
What has anything more come of the like time travel conceit that we were talking about last week?
No, not yet. I mean, every now and then they mention it. They're like, "Oh, you're the boy from the portal, from that space-time portal that's ripped open in the sky," and you're like, "Yep, I am." Don't know what that means or how that adds up to anything. But yeah, I'm really loving it.
That's great. Oh, one more question. Do you have? Is your character expressive, or is it that classic Pokemon?
Classic,
just
classic deadpan.
like people talk to you, then it'll like the camera will focus on you, and you just have nothing going on.
Nothing going on. I mean, occasionally, just a like regular Pokemon. Sometimes it'll be like, this surprise face or like a smile or something, but usually just dead eyes. I did put some glasses on though. Right now, I'm rocking a white karate uniform and white boots, with a red belt, a red bandana, and red glasses. So I'm like white and red.
That sounds awesome. Are they like sunglasses or just like reading glasses?
They're just, they're very round. They're like Harry Potter glasses. They're the only glasses that I currently have at the moment. But,
I love it.
It's the bane of my existence in the game is the limited satchel space I have to put items in, because crafting is so like vital to the game, and because I don't want to like throw anything out. You have a limited number of inventory spaces for crafting materials, for balls, and for like items that you use in battle, and also like berries and stuff that you would use to distract. What am I saying?
Like attract Pokemon?
Attract Pokemon in the wild. Thank you. And it's just like it's too many categories, and I can't just be like, well, I'm not going to bring any of those, So it's tough. I'm always kind of.
Oh, so it's not like you have one satchel and then as many spaces as you want. It's like no, you have like a set number for this, a set number like a set.
No,
number
so it is one satchel with like. You expand it as you go. But so you start with maybe like 16 spots, so like 16 different items can go in there.
Oh, got it. Okay.
And anything that there's like a storage box, so like if you get back to the campsite, you can throw stuff in there to access it later, which is fine in theory. But I'm kind of just like, just let me carry it all. Just let me carry it all. Like it's not fun to not be able to carry it all.
Totally.
Especially when crafting materials fall into that same category. So like if I encounter a new material that I haven't experienced before, suddenly I like have to figure out what to do with because 75 regular Pokeballs take up the same space as one iron that I just picked up because I've never had any iron before, so that's a little busted. And crafting is you get a lot of items through crafting. I'm almost like, what's the point of like, it's not fun necessarily to craft, and you can do it anywhere. So it's not even like you have to get back to a campsite to craft. So like there are some systems that are still like a little, a little lumpy in like the way that Pokemon systems are lumpy. But complaints notwithstanding, like it's just so fun to be like stalking around, watching Pokemon go about their daily business and trying to catch them.
Yeah, that does sound fun. Well, it was a big week for me, and not just because it got new hand soap that I'm learning to love.
Soap, yeah.
I finished both Skyward Sword HD.
Whoa.
And Paper Mario.
Wow.
Yeah, dunzo.
Wow. Those are two that you've been chasing for like a while.
Yeah, I mean, I bought Skyward Sword when the HD version was released, and then when Paper Mario became available in December, I started playing that. So yeah, kind of clearing the deck, making way for Kirby month and what else may come. But so you have finished Skyward Sword. I have now finished Skyward Sword. We have not really talked about the ending of this game, and so I'm now going to talk about it. So if you want to avoid spoilers for Skyward Sword, definitely skip ahead a little bit. So I really liked the end of this game.
Yeah.
So basically, after you get the like,
I love this. We're like getting into it.
Yeah.
So okay, yeah. So like for real, like skip ahead like 3 or 4 minutes.
Right. So you get the 3 pieces of the Triforce, and then the temple part of Skyloft like crashes to the ground outside of the Sacred Realms, and then you go basically, like, you go back in time and you have this big battle with Girahim. But before you get to Girahim, you have to walk down to the bottom of, like, the grounds outside. And it's like a Muso. Basically, it's just waves and waves of bokoblins, like, coming at you. And
occasionally there's, like, a harder one in there.
Yeah. And it really made me wonder, like, because this was on the Wii, and then Hyrule Warriors came out on the Wii U. It really made me wonder if that was, like, the kind of inspiration.
Yeah,
for,
like
it really felt like a little, like,
yeah.
Muso, like, within Skyward Sword.
Yeah, I mean, by the same token, it makes me wonder if anyone ever saw, like, the end, like, the final fight of Skyward Sword and, like, realized you could turn that into a fighting game. Because that last battle with the Demon King, I thought it was so cool.
Wait, the one with Demise?
Yeah.
Like the, like, kind of Ganon-looking dude?
Yeah, the Ganon-looking dude, when he's wielding the sword that is Girahim.
Yeah, I thought... So, okay, when you before had said that Girahim turns into his sword, I was imagining this, like, Animorphs type thing, but it was actually way cooler. Like, Demise, like, basically pulls out of Girahim's heart, like, this sword. It was really cool.
Yeah,
that was really neat. I thought the fight with Demise, I was actually surprised that neither fight, like, with Girahim or with Demise, were that difficult. Like, I thought it was fairly simple. I did use, like, one of the potions, like the Guardian potion, that halves your damage, and so that definitely made it easier. But
yeah, it's a fight that if you're, like, equipped for it, if you've got, like, a potion or potions, that you should be in pretty good shape.
Which was fine with me. Like, I was not, desperate for a boss fight that I was going to, like, bang my head against the wall on. Like, I was happy for it to be over with.
I also like that it's, like, a fundamentals fight.
Yes.
That you're not, like, pulling out, like, weird items or getting a new mechanic right then. Like, it's all just swordplay.
Yeah, and it takes, like, advantage of the Skyward Sword mechanic where
it really is. The lightning,
like,
from him. Yeah,
it was very cool. I also, historically, video game stories do nothing for me, but I really, really liked the story of Skyward Sword.
Yeah,
and I really liked a lot of the characters, and I ended up really, really liking Fi, your sword character. And so at the very end,
when she says goodbye to you,
I found that very effective.
Yeah.
I really, like, that really worked for me. Okay, I also have a question.
Yeah.
At the very, very end, after you go through the credits.
Yeah.
So there's, like, another little vignette where Link and Zelda are standing outside on Hyrule, like, the ground, and Groose and a couple of other people take the birds and they're flying back to Skyloft. And Zelda's like, hey, I think I'm going to, like, stay here and live on Hyrule. What about you, Link? And Link doesn't say anything, but
as is his way.
Yeah, but, like, it's clear he's going to stay as well. Are they, like, the Adam and Eve?
I think they're Adam and Eve. Yeah, of Hyrule.
That's a lot to grapple with.
I mean, it is cool, like, how foundational, like, the mythology from Skyward Sword ends up being.
Totally.
I mean, you're building the Master Sword.
Yep. Yeah, that is very cool. And also Demise, when he dies, he's like, oh, but I'm coming back. Like, don't get, like, I'm going to haunt your
children and your children's children.
Exactly, yeah. And, like, my spirit is going to be around forever. And for whatever reason, that was really effective for me as well. I mean, not to get, like, too real, but it feels like in the world right now, we're living through this time where we're, like, far enough away from some of the greater evils of the past that everybody's kind of, like, forgetting those lessons.
Right.
And we are literally doomed to repeat some of them. And so...
it's the Force Awakens, baby. Where it's the New Order. Yeah.
Yeah.
New Order? Is that what they're called?
First Order.
First Order. There we go.
Although I'm sure that they would have incredible synth tracks, dance tracks, if they could. But yeah,
you got me.
It just felt a little bit. I don't know. Those sorts of, like, stories affect me in a way that they didn't before, because it does feel like very real.
Yeah, to be, like, kind of trapped in that cycle. Did you like the Impa reveal that
yes, I liked that so much. Okay, so you go part of the mechanic in the game is you go through this time gate, and Impa is protecting Zelda on like one side of the time gate, and at the end, Impa's like, I have to stay here, and so Zelda says goodbye, and she gives her a bracelet. And throughout the entire game, there's been this like old woman at the temple at the sacred grounds who is just called like the old woman or something like that. And
she looks an awful lot like with this like giant braid. She looks an awful lot like the guardians of the shrines in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's such a good point. But then, so at the end, you travel back through the gate of time, and it's revealed that the old woman was Impa, and that also really worked for me. I could not believe how well the story of Skyward Sword worked for me. I really, really, really liked Skyward Sword.
Yep. I liked it a lot too, Mark. I'm so glad you finished it. We are, and I know that you were applying a little pressure to yourself because we are talking about Skyward Sword on Thursday. We are determining the best NPC. Will Impa be on that list? Will Groose be on that list? Will Demise be on that list? What about Girahim? I'm sure we've got something to say about that guy. Tune in for that.
And so also I finished Paper Mario, which I also enjoyed. When I first started the game, I was like, this is a perfect game. When I got to the end of the game, I'm like, I enjoyed it. I liked it a lot. Definitely not a perfect game.
Yeah.
I think it is a little too long. Like Bowser's castle just felt endless to me. But the last couple of boss fights are pretty tricky. Bowser specifically, like, I really got by that boss fight by the skin of my teeth. Like I had 1 HP left.
Oh, geez.
And and when I did the final blow. So in that way, I guess you could say it was very like well balanced. But one thing that was crazy is I ended up having, every time you get 100 star points, you can level up either HP, FP, which is like magic, but it's flower points, or badge points, which is how you equip different buffs. And you get 5 of either, you can choose 5 HP, 5 FP, or 3 badge points. I had been putting all of my stuff into essentially badge points and flower points. So I ended up with 20 HP. And I was looking at some of the guides on how to beat Bowser.
And people are like, you should have 60 hit points
That's
by now.
exactly right. And
Yeah.
I was like, this is a mess. So it took me a while to beat Bowser, but I was determined to finish it. And I'm glad I did. It was it's a fun game. At the very end, there over the credits, there's this. It's basically like a celebratory parade where Luigi is the what
Grand Marshal?
Yeah, or is it the grand, like the band leader, the one with like the baton?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so yeah.
That's a parade marshal.
Yeah, so like leading the marching band that is full of Goombas, but the thing that, or not Goombas, Toads, but the thing that my like theme park loving heart loved about it is that happens during the day, and then it transitions to night, and it's like the Main Street Electrical Parade,
which also happens at the end of Super Mario World, but it's 16-bit instead of the like paper aesthetic.
Yeah, so glad to have those games finished. Enjoyed both a lot. And yeah, looking forward to Kirby Month.
That's amazing. Did I mention last week / had it happened at that point that I finished Spider-Man on PlayStation 4?
No, we didn't talk about that.
I finished Spider-Man. So we're experiencing a bunch of endings right now, which I think is very cool. And there's something that happens at the. I'm not about to spoil the end of Spider-Man, but there's something that happens in there that feels totally superfluous, and I'm like, why did that happen? This story wasn't about this. All in all, I think Spider-Man's a great game. I think the presentation of it is wonderful. The performances are wonderful, but the story as a complete package, pretty dumb and scattered.
Oh yeah.
Which I think no one was ready to acknowledge when the game came out because it is so pretty and because the presentation and like every moment works. But you put it all together into one story and it's like, no, that's a mess.
Do you think you'll pick up Miles Morales?
I mean, I did I picked up the complete package
got it.
all of it together. And I spent a good deal of time this morning just like flipping around New York looking for more crimes to solve with my fists. Because it's a really fun game. The combat's very satisfying, as is just swinging around. All right, that's what we've been playing this week. Let's get into the new releases and what we might be playing next week.
Today, Tuesday, February 8th, Ollie World is released on the Switch eShop.
We're already there.
I know, crazy.
Ollie World was we saw it in like one Indie World showcase and then again in like another one. So Nintendo's obviously like positioning it to be one of their like marquee indies. You had expressed some interest in this one earlier. Do you think you're gonna pick it up when it comes out?
I don't think it's on my
today.
It's on my watch list, or wish list on the Nintendo eShop. So I'm gonna wait for a sale in the future, but I am interested in it for sure. On Thursday, February 10th, all the Kingdom Hearts games are coming to Switch as part of the cloud version. Should I read all of the titles?
I don't think so, because I mean they don't make sense. But remember, they are all the cloud versions of the games, and my experience with the demos was that they stream kind of rough, but determine it for yourself. You can check out the demos for free, even now ahead of the release. But I think probably if you have the capacity to play them anywhere else, do that, because the individual pricing on these things, we talked about it a couple weeks ago, they're so expensive. And even if you get like the bundle of all three of them, it's like $90. And you can always on other platforms find it for like between $20 and $30.
And then doing something a little special, jumping ahead to Monday.
Because
on Monday, February 14th, Monster Prom 2 Monster Camp XXL is releasing. I didn't know that there was a sequel to Monster Prom, so this was a huge surprise to me. I played this game back in 2020 when it was released on Switch. It's like a dating simulator type thing in a monster-filled high school. It's really funny.
And it can be the writing is incredible. Like it is genuinely funny and like super self-aware, but not in like a meme-y kind of way. Like it's actually well written. But it can be a competitive dating sim, which is incredible. Like you can actually pass controllers around when you're playing with other people. So you're all like trying to romance from the same pool of monsters.
Which I've never played it in
multiplayer
we
should,
before.
Mark.
That
it's so
would be
fun.
really fun. But yeah, so the conceit of this one is that you're at like a summer camp and there's new monsters to romance, all that kind of stuff. Seems like a lot of fun.
New monsters. Are the old monsters still in there?
I think I actually don't know. Maybe it is an entirely new cast. I'm not sure.
I don't know if my heart could take losing some of those monsters. There are some good monsters in there. Okay, well, those are the new releases. Let's close this out. Back to messing up the music cues. Thank you. Now it's time for a regular segment on our show. It is time for 433. In 1952, American composer John Cage wrote a piece called 433, wherein a performer or a group of performers didn't play their instruments for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. For the purposes of this show, our instruments are talking about Nintendo. So, for the duration of one performance of 433, Mark and I will talk about something not at all Nintendo related, thus fulfilling the contract of the piece. Mark, I believe you have prepared a little something for me.
That's right. So today, this morning, February 8th, the 2022 Oscar nominations were announced. And Patrick, have prepared a little Oscars quiz for you.
No, I hope it's not about the nominations that were announced this morning, because I don't have any of that information.
That's right. It is not.
Okay, good.
Okay, so what I have done is I'm going to read to you the nominees for Best Picture from a certain year.
Oh,
and
God.
Then
I have to pick who actually won?
No.
Oh.
You will pick what year
these
nominations come from.
All right.
Okay.
Great.
So here's the first list.
Did you know that Shrek won for Best Adapted Screenplay? Did you know that?
Wait, no, I did not know that. This is new information.
Now you are cursed with that knowledge. Has Academy Award winning Shrek.
Okay.
Yeah.
First grouping. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Braveheart.
Okay.
Apollo 13.
Yeah.
Babe. The Postman. Il Postino. And Sense and Sensibility.
Okay, so this is in mid to early 90s. I'm going to say 1994.
So close.
Is it 5?
1995.
Oh,
yeah,
that was my gut said 95.
Do you remember what the best
Braveheart,
picture?
right?
Yep. Yeah. Okay. All right. That was super close.
Yeah.
Here's next one.
I hope that
Next
wasn't like
grouping.
the easy one that I was supposed to get.
I don't know that any of these are necessarily easy. I would say they're all about the same.
Okay.
American Beauty.
1999.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And American Beauty won. Let's see if I can name the others. I can't. What are the other nominees?
The Cider House Rules,
Uh-huh.
The Green Mile,
Uh-huh.
The Insider, and The Sixth Sense.
Okay. Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
Man. That should have won. Sixth Sense is a great film. Holds up.
Here's another grouping.
Mm-hmm.
The Artist, The Descendants,
Okay.
Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, The Help,
Uh-huh.
Hugo, Midnight in Paris,
Oh, that's right. We were doing like 8 of these things.
Moneyball, The Tree of Life,
Uh-huh.
and Warhorse.
I saw most of these movies. But I saw Tree of Life in Chicago and I saw The Artist in LA. So I think this must have been 2012.
Oh,
2011?
2011.
Oh, that's
yes.
that is of course what I meant.
I know.
Yeah.
You totally had that one.
It was in 2012 that
it won.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
But for 2011, yeah.
The Artist, of course.
One, yes.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next grouping.
Which was good. The Artist was good. I liked it.
Out of Africa,
Uh-huh.
The Color Purple,
Okay.
Kiss of the Spider Woman, of course, the first in the Sony Spider-Man movies,
No, that's not true.
Prizzy's Honor, and Witness.
Okay, so we've got to be in the early 80s here. I think Witness came out either right before or right after Return of the Jedi. I'm going to say 1984.
Ooh, so close. 1985.
Gah! Well, we'll never know if you had more for me. Do you have one more?
I do. Oh, well, I have 3 more.
Oh, okay. Give me one more.
Okay, here we go.
Just the best one, though.
The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, Frost Nixon,
Uh-huh.
Milk, The Reader, and Slumdog Millionaire.
Okay. 2010?
Ooh, close. 2008.
That's not that close. When I'm 1 year away, you can say that I'm close. But when I'm 2 years off, I totally missed it.
Okay, you're right. That was a trash answer.
Thank you. Give me half a point. We were accompanied today by the Berliner Philharmoniker. All right, Mark, let's get into the news. Thank you, by the way, for preparing that quiz for me.
So, a mysterious bundle
Mm-hmm.
of mysterious origin called the Batman Arkham Collection, listed for the Nintendo Switch, has possibly been leaked by French distributor WTT with the release date of August 31st, 2022.
Now, possibly big news here because none of the Batman Arkham games are currently playable in any form on the Nintendo Switch. There was a version of Arkham City, the Armored Edition, that was available on the Wii U, which even had some like gamepad functionality. But like kind of that's it. I don't think Arkham Asylum ever came to any Nintendo platform.
I don't think so either. So this listing showed up last week, has since been removed, and no one has said anything about it.
No one has confirmed a thing.
What makes this seem more likely than just a mistake is that there's never been anything called the Batman Arkham Collection before.
Yeah, that is the crazy thing, that there is a like bundling / like it's a upresing of the first 2 games, Arkham City or Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, called just called Batman Return to Arkham, that was available on PlayStation 4 and possibly Xbox One. But that is not the Batman Arkham Collection.
Right. And the date, like August 31st, you point out, Patrick, is a Wednesday, and it's the end of the month. So kind of feels like a placeholder date.
Yeah, that doesn't feel like a real date. But if they knew it was coming out like in the summer, like that's a safe like end of summer date, basically.
So let's throw our hats in the ring. Do we think this is real?
I want it to be real. And there are a handful of Arkham games that have never been like re-released in any way. Like there's the Batman Arkham Origins, which is the sort of like flashback one. that wasn't developed by Rocksteady but by WB Montreal, which is a pretty good game, just not as good as the other two. And then also the portable Arkham Origins Blackgate, which I think was like a Vita and DS game maybe, or
I
something
think it's
like
a 3DS game.
3DS game.
But I think it was developed by Mercury Steam, the same developers who most recently developed Metroid Dread.
So and then there's also obviously Arkham Knight, the first of these Arkham games that was native to PlayStation 4, Xbox One generation. And so if the Batman Arkham Collection could be any assemblage of those 5 games, it would be very cool to see that on all platforms, but would be especially cool to see it on Switch.
Yeah, I do wonder if the collection will have that many games. You know what I mean?
It's a lot of games to put on a collection, but I mean, like, they are the Return to Arkham collection has been on both like Game Pass on Xbox and the PS Plus, and like even beyond that, so like for free essentially for people who subscribe to those services. And otherwise it'll cost you like $7 or something like that. So like they're kind of just giving it away at this point. So like why not package all of them and
charge $60 for
charge
it again?
$60
it would
on
be
Switch,
also be cool. I mean, I don't think that Arkham Origins Blackgate had a great reception, but it would be cool to have that available someplace again. I looked it up. I was incorrect. It is not Mercury Steam. It was Armature Studio, which was kind of like some of the developers from retro games
there we
left and made their own studio.
And there was also sort of news this last week that Rocksteady's upcoming game Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League was delayed until 2023. That's not like an announcement that they made, but like all sort of reporting around it is that the game is being sort of quietly delayed.
And is WB Montreal's Arkham Knights supposed to come out this year now?
Arkham,
wasn't it delayed from last year?
Correct. So our Arkham Knights, which like when it was delayed, because that one is supposed to be cross-generational, right? That it's supposed to be on the last-gen PlayStation and Xbox and current, whereas Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League was not going to be a previous-gen game. So it would be weird to release them within the same year. So, whatever the reason for pushing back Kill the Justice League, it seems like that's happening. So if they want to just like, generate some more like Arkham excitement, I think this would be a way to do it, especially because there's no way that Arkham Gotham Knights, right? Is that?
Oh, I think you're right. I think that is what it's called.
That Gotham Knights is coming to Switch, right?
Right.
So if they do have this collection that's available, and the collection could also just be the first 2, or it probably won't have the Origins games on there, just because they've been sort of ignored otherwise. Would still be a cool little like way to juice the franchise by putting that on Switch.
Yeah, I think so too. I also would just love to replay Arkham Asylum.
Yeah, Arkham, especially like as something to revisit. Arkham Asylum is so like contained and neat and tight that it would be very fun to revisit that.
At last week's Yacht Club Games Presents, the company revealed a new game, Mina the Hollower, aiming for a late 2023 release. It kind of looks like a mix between Castlevania and a Zelda game. Promises a Game Boy Color 8-bit aesthetic with modern touches like widescreen, detailed animation, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick, as our resident Yacht Club Games booster, how are you feeling about Mina the Hollower?
I mean, in the abstract, I'm excited because they know how to do these kind of like retro style games while also embracing a lot of new technology and just like thoughts about game design. The Game Boy Color like 8-bit aesthetic I'm not as immediately in love with it as I am like an 8-bit or like a 16-bit aesthetic. It's one of those it feels more limiting than I want it to be, or I don't know if just like those color palettes are like a little bit grosser to me. It's like what was the name of that Pocket Fighter, the one that I was excited about, the
Pocket Rumble?
Yeah, that's right, Pocket Rumble, that was using the Neo Geo Pocket as like its visual template, which is a cool it's cool like as a artifact, but it's not something that I would be drawn to like sort of natively in the same way that I am to like pixel art that more closely resembles NES or Super NES. And I think I have the same hang up around Game Boy Color. It just I'm not it doesn't feel as pretty to me.
Yeah, to me it's a really interesting choice to make it based on like the Game Boy Color template, and in some ways the fact that they put that limitation on themselves, or at least that's like the lens in which they're viewing it, I find that really interesting.
Does that, because for me, when I hear Zelda-like Game Boy Color game, I think of the Oracle games of Seasons and Ages, which are like pretty lumpy Zelda games, right? That seems like an interesting like kind of well to draw from that I trust Yacht Club, but I'm not immediately like, ooh, those are exactly the aesthetics that I'm excited to see them use.
Another thing I thought was interesting is that they have chosen to set up a Kickstarter for the game.
Yeah.
So it launched last week with an original goal of a very specific number that I'm sure it must have some significance that I'm not aware of.
Sure.
It's 311,000, like, how do you say this?
311,503.
There you go. But at this point, they're closing in on 1 million and adding new stretch goals. So I don't know. So basically what they say, they're upfront. They're like, quote, compared to our original Kickstarter, we're not in dire straits. We're financing a majority of Mina the Hollower's development internally. Our main reason for launching a Kickstarter this time is to build a brand new universe in the same way we did with our first game, Shovel Knight, with our community involved in creating something special along with us. Every backer that joins the development will help to make a more robust game. Together we'll break new ground. The thing is, like, I don't have strong feelings one way or the other about them kickstarting it. I think it's kind of weird, but that's their explanation there means nothing to me. But maybe I don't know what they're talking about. I don't know what they're talking about.
Well, I mean, it sort of depends, right? Because like there is definitely like a community that comes out of kickstarting something, just in that like you are when you kickstart a project, you are getting like regular emailed updates, and you are promised, whatever kind of reward. And in some ways, kickstarting this game is a more surefire bet that the money that you're spending on it will in fact result in a game that you are getting. There is no guarantee when you kickstart a game, even if it's like one of the rewards is like a digital copy of the game, that you'll ever see that game. Just because projects fail, projects don't get completed. This one will. They will spend their own money to get it. I would be curious to know whether people are like kickstarting this with like if they're spending more money on it than just the cost of like the game or whatever rewards they're interested in. Because like as a pre-ordering a game that isn't going to come out for another year plus, Kickstarter is a pretty good platform for that. But if the game is going to be funded anyway, then there's not really any other point to it, right?
Right. But like you said, I think that's a really good point that, there is more like guarantee that this project is going to be something that you like and is actually going to ship. Like, why not Kickstarter it? I feel like with Shovel Knight, they did right by their Kickstarter, like their backers.
I mean, when they were kickstarting Shovel Knight, they set some like really ambitious stretch goals, which ended up being, like 3 separate other campaigns on top of the like original game, which with the exception of the Plague Knight one, were like full-fledged, like, with different stories and like all these other like new levels and stuff. And they had those as stretch goals, and they met them all. And like it seemed like they set them as goals without expecting to ever hit them. And so they continued development on that game for like 5 years after it came out because they had to meet their stretch goals. And also ended up putting a game mode in there that had nothing to do with their stretch goals. So yeah, it feels like a weird sort of icky move, but it's like Yacht Club's always good for it. You know what I mean? If it were almost any other studio, I'd be like, what are you up to? But like, I don't know, Yacht Club seems good for it.
The presentation also included the announcement of DLC for Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon and features the new character Random Knight. And there was an update on the development of Shovel Knight Dig, which is currently in the final stages of development, announced in 2019. Like, the game was first announced in 2019. This is one that every time Yacht Club Games comes up, I'm like, isn't there another thing lingering out there? What are we waiting on? So I'm trying to file this away in my mind palace for next time this comes up.
So that was the hour of a Yacht Club Presents. They talked about 3 games, one of which was brand new, one of which is currently out, and another one which we've known about since 2019. Okay. All right. Thanks, Yacht Club Presents. We know what to expect of you now.
Nintendo announced their third quarter financial results last week. So as of this recording right now, we're still waiting for the official English translation of the investor Q&A session that happens around this time. And that's where like the juicy tidbits come from sometimes.
We're waiting by the phone. Like people want to make calls on this phone, but we know we can't let them. We can't tie up the line because that translation is going to come in any minute.
Nobody can connect to the internet.
No one. Hey, if I hear one YouTube video playing, I'll know.
We don't want to tie up the phone lines.
Mm-hmm.
But while we're anxiously awaiting the release of the official English translation, we do have some cold, hard numbers to wrap our minds around.
Don't need to translate numbers.
So just a reminder that most of these numbers are through the end of the fiscal quarter, so that would be the end of December.
Very good.
Pokemon Sword and Shield is now the second best-selling Pokemon games. I guess they are the second best-selling Pokemon games, passing Gold and Silver at almost 24 million copies sold, according to Nintendo. 23,900,000.
A huge number.
Red, Green, Blue, still the best selling with over 31 million, but that's insane.
Yeah, I mean, and it's amazing that like Red, Blue, and Green, and is Yellow, do you think, included in that too?
I don't think so.
Hard to say.
Yeah.
That they've been around forever.
That's true.
Which is part of the reason that they continue to make new sales. And like they were re-released on the 3DS eShop just a couple of years ago, even maybe like 5 or 6 years ago. So I know they got another bump then. But still, there's like truly impressive numbers that those old Game Boy games are putting up.
Yeah, and like crazy that Sword and Shield did as well as it did.
Yeah, I mean, is that just a power of the Switch kind of thing, or like what's happening?
I think it's power of the Switch, not to be confused with the power of the dog, which may be nominated for Oscars this morning. At this point, we don't know.
What do you mean we don't know? Do you know?
Well, no.
This morning. I see. This morning meaning for us tomorrow morning.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I think it is the power of Switch. Plus, just the general popularity of Pokemon. I really think, Pokemon Go really reinvigorated a lot of love for Pokemon, and I think the franchise has just kind of been firing on all cylinders for years now.
And Detective Pikachu, I think.
I think great point.
There was a lot of like mainstreamification of Pokemon fandom outside of the ways in which it already was a mainstream thing anyway. So yeah, it's I guess not surprising that Sword and Shield would end up selling as well as they did. And then we've got numbers for Legends Arceus just from the first week that it was out. 6.5 million copies have been sold.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
That's so many. That's 3 Metroid Dreads.
Yeah. Also, Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, which again released like 3 months ago, has sold almost 14 million, 13.97 million copies.
They're outstanding numbers.
It's a boom time for Pokemon.
And especially considering that we're talking about $60 games now. We're not talking about Game Boy games who knows how much they were selling for, or 3DS games that were selling for $40. Like they're very big numbers.
Like you mentioned, Metroid Dread is at 2.74 million, so just a few 100,000 behind Metroid Prime to become the best-selling Metroid game ever. And like you're saying, at $60.
Yeah. Yep.
Also, Animal Crossing New Horizons is now the single best-selling game ever in Japan, with over 10 million copies sold, passing the original Super Mario Brothers, at which had sold 6.81 million copies.
The gulf between those numbers is enormous.
It's so crazy.
10 million and 6.81 million?
It feels like it. I can't remember what the last like update for Animal Crossing was. So either it sold like 4 million copies over the holidays, or
Yeah.
it has passed this some time ago.
Boy, that's a great point. I mean, I guess it's possible that it had like a resurgence in popularity with
But just
Happy
in
Home
Japan,
Paradise.
this is singularly in Japan, like 4 million copies.
I mean-
It must have passed this a while ago.
Right, and they just like saw fit now to be like, oh, you know what? That's an impressive number.
Also, both WarioWare Get It Together and Game Builder Garage are over 1 million copies sold.
Game Builder Garage.
Mind blowing.
Good for those games. I liked WarioWare Get It Together. I fell off it pretty quick, but still like fun every time I revisit it.
Also, the Switch has sold 103.54 million units. It now has passed the Wii as Nintendo's best-selling home console, and also passed the PlayStation 1.
It's a lot. They've sold a lot of those things.
Yep. Hard to remember when was it Kimishima who was the interim president during the Switch launch, and the thing I think was barely out, or maybe even before it was released. He was like, "We're feeling pretty good about this. Like, we think it could surpass the Wii," and that just seemed so crazy at the time.
Yeah, well, and especially just like with the position that Nintendo was coming from on the not success of the Wii U. Did you? I saw some of like the slides that they had for this, where they were showing like the Wii generation. They have like the Wii and the DS sort of side by side, and then they put the Switch and the 3DS together in like one generation to be like, see, these are all that they add up to be like better. And then the Wii U just sort of like hanging out in the middle, when it's like that 3DS should be down there with the Wii U.
Totally.
That does not belong in the Switch generation.
No, that
You're
doesn't
doing
count.
it wrong.
The Switch killed the 3DS.
Yeah, 100%. And the Wii U was just, I don't know, bleeding out.
Trying its best.
Yeah, it did.
Trying its best. Also, surprise, Nintendo could have sold more Switches, but couldn't meet demand due to supply constraints. The OLED model is still pretty hard to get. During December, I felt like there were a lot of, you would see it come up on Amazon and stuff.
Yeah.
But you can't just like walk into a store and buy an OLED.
Which is also just sort of a universal experience for a lot of the new generation hardware. So, again, we are not talking about supply constraints or chip shortages until there is something new to say on them. So I'm afraid we must move on.
This is only tangentially Nintendo related, but last week Sony announced their intention to buy the developer of Destiny and the original Halo games, Bungie.
Mm-hmm.
You will not be surprised, Patrick, to hear that I think that this is bad
Because of consolidation. Yeah, it's not great. The thing that I keep seeing is that Bungie has the sort of like online infrastructure, and they know how to make like online live service games, which is something that Sony and PlayStation are like moving towards in the future, and that a lot of what they're buying is like institutional knowledge and like how to do that, which like I think there is something valuable in that knowledge being like spread around back down to the rest of Sony studios, but I almost wish it was just like, let's take the trade secret and
like a partnership almost.
Well, it's one of those things where it's like penicillin. Like everyone should just have access to it, right? Like we're all better if all the video game companies know how to make live service games, right? And obviously the scale of importance there is way lower. But it's just like patents on COVID vaccines that like we should be lifting those so that there can be generics made across the world. Sort of the same thing there. And I know that like, the technology and the IP is all like proprietary, and like it's good that people can make their money off of it while the getting is good. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I agree with you that like putting all of that knowledge just into Sony's camp, instead of like it being around to everyone, is a bummer.
Well, the part that irritates me is, when these things are announced and, Jim Ryan says, well, Bungie games are going to stay multi-platform, right? And then that gets repeated everywhere. And to me, that's just so mealy-mouthed, because it's like, yeah, today they're going to be.
Right.
But, like in 4 years down the line, when it no longer makes financial sense to do that, regulators are no longer looking at this,
Right.
acquisition.
Right.
Then how long do you think that Bungie games are actually going to stay multi-platform?
Right. It is truly the same thing as the Microsoft Activision Blizzard purchase, where they say, oh yeah, we're not going to take Call of Duty away from you. Yeah, they're not going to take it away from you, but the next one's going to be on a platform that has a big green X in the middle of it, right?
Right.
And it's, I don't know. All of it, like the sort of like console warsiness of it is so pointless, because like the problems with consolidation are on, I'm gonna say both sides, even though I don't even think it is a sides or that there are only two of them, right? But just the consolidation of these like giant companies is not good for competition. It's not good for capitalism. It's not good for like
video games in the long run.
It's not good for video games.
Yeah,
in the long run.
I really don't think so.
And it's disheartening to see, like any of the conversation about this online, like immediately goes back to like,
who wins
and who's a fanboy of what, and like Xbox tiers, and it's all so annoying that like, how did people get lumped in these like tribal states of like identifying like you play this or you want this companies to succeed? It's dumb to want like any of these companies to succeed on this level. And I know we do a Nintendo podcast. I know this. But it's a company that traditionally makes games with values that Mark and I share, right?
Right. I mean, hey, we're not above it.
We were just celebrating the fact that the Switch has sold 103.54 million units. So maybe I've lost all the high ground here. But it's yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you're like, is this a video game story or just a scary sign of things to come?
Right. Yeah. Well, here's something Sony related that is Nintendo related. The Sony produced MLB The Show 22 game is headed to Switch on April 5th, 2022. In 2019, you'll recall it was announced that the game would no longer be a PlayStation exclusive, and we got an Xbox version last year, and this year it's also on Switch.
Let me ask you this. / do we have any confirmation of this? Is it like a real version? I think it's cloud?
Yeah, as far as I know, they're selling like physical copies of it. I think it's the real deal.
That is interesting, because the show is traditionally like a graphically intensive, like it's a pretty game, and also very sim-y. I spent a little time with maybe The Show 2019, 2020, one of them, on PlayStation 4, and was immediately put off by how how involved and like how much I had to think about how baseball was played. But yeah, huge games, right, that sell really well on PlayStation and on Xbox. I do think it's cool that the studio sort of like represented themselves as Sony, and were like, or no, it was MLB, right? It was the license holder that was like, if you want to keep the license, you got to keep putting these things out.
That's my guess. I'm guessing they looked at like the success of Madden and all the other sports license teams. Right, that's right. And we're like, thank you for doing that, Patrick. I forgot. But yeah, I'm assuming they looked at that and were like, oh wait, we could be making a ton more money if this wasn't a platform exclusive.
Right. Yeah, so I wonder if there are any concessions made for the Switch version.
Yeah, that's a great point. I don't know that there's been previews or anything of it. So yeah, buyer beware, I suppose.
Always good advice. All right, Mark, let's get out of the news. All right, that is going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. Remember, please rate, review, and follow us on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. If you like the episode, you can share it on Facebook or Twitter or wherever you share stuff. We appreciate it when you do that. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Patrick_Ellers. Mark is at MKE Mitchell, and the show is at NinCart Society. We also have a Facebook page, which is just Nintendo Cartridge Society. Olivia Duncan made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com. or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Eller saying thank you for listening.
I'm Brian Husky. I'm bald.
And I'm Charlie Sanders, and I'm also bald. And we host Bald Talk on the Campfire Media Network.
Bald Talk is the podcast where two bald comedians talk to anyone bald about being bald.
But this show isn't just for baldies, Brian. Harrows will love it too.
Bald Talk gets into vulnerability, vanity, insecurity, and self-acceptance, reminding us that we all have our respective bald spots. Not that bald spots are a bad thing.
No way. I mean, my entire head is one big bald spot.
It is one huge, beautiful bald spot, Charlie.
Get Bald Talk on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts.
I mean, I have like a little bit of hair, but not like you. Like, you're really bald.
I'm truly bald.
Great. I mean, it's
I'm
great.
balder than you.
You are balder than me.
Only on Bald Talk. Campfire.